Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax so we can chat about what is happening up in the stars above us for the weekend. It's Friday the 15th. I see we have Pam Z with us this morning, and happy birthday to Pam. Happy birthday to my granddaughter Liliana, and welcome to all of you who are joining me this morning. And if it is your birthday, this is a great time for you to be joining us because today's the full moon. The full moon is across the axis of Taurus and Scorpio. And as you know, or hopefully as you know, I am on this kick to reimagine the zodiac. And let me just remind you my goals, my how I am going to rock this world. This is my way to rock the world. And that is through three distinct things. First, rocking the world by reimagining the zodiac, right? Taking the zodiac, turning it upside down on its head, bringing in the divine feminine, giving her a bigger presence in a pantheon that has been primarily masculine and patriarchal and not a source of the voice for the feminine, right? So I'm giving voice to the divine feminine, and hopefully that can start to permeate through the culture. I mean, I have no illusions that millions of people are going to listen to me, but I'm doing my part. Secondly, adding the 13th sign into the zodiac. Now, that's going to be a process that takes time because we have to integrate something completely new. We have to decide how impactful that is going to be in the astrology as it stands. Tropical astrology built very much on the seasons and not on the constellations. So they kind of ignore that 13th sign because it doesn't really impact the seasonal aspects. But I think it does. And I think it's worthwhile for us to really bring that out. And the third thing, which should have actually been the first thing, is to change the calendar that we use to be more in alignment with the wheel of the year, which is astrologically based, which begins on March 21st or 22nd, the first day of the vernal equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere. So, vernal meaning spring, the spring equinox. So, today, we have a lot to talk about. And I want you to remember that, this is just the beginning of a reimagining, right? So, for example, when Gene Roddenberry began to imagine Star Trek, it didn't have all of its details yet, right? It was an imagination that then began to coalesce as an idea, moved into a series of books, and then moved on into film and into movie. And that's kind of the path we have to remember that we're taking here, the reimagination beginning, right? We're at the very beginning. And I actually have written quite a bit about this already, but as I'm rereading it, I'm like, tweak, tweak, tweak. So we'll be tweaking as we go along. And I want this process not to be just me tweaking it. Give me your ideas, right? Give me your visions of a reimagined zodiac and empowered divine feminine. And let's see if we can co-create. That is also part of the divine feminine, right? Co-creation, collaboration, and sort of being in the cooperative spirit of creation energy. So today, as we begin to look at things through this lens, we have to remember that, we're going to be going to look for these new characteristics and creating them as we go because the patriarchy has been firmly established in our reality. And so when I talk about reimagining Saturn here in just a few moments, you're going to have to use your imagination with this because we have such a very strong idea of the patriarchal nature of Saturn, and turning it upside down on its head has a lot of implications. And I'm sure I'm going to hear blowback from a lot of different people. But in my estimation, if we don't rewrite, if we don't reimagine, then we're going to be stuck in the same paradigm where the divine feminine is way out of balance with the divine masculine energy. And that isn't good for us as individuals. It is not good for the world. So we must take it in hand and do something about it, right? So here's the big news. Today is, of course, the full moon. That occurs at 4:29 p.m. East Coast time, East Coast of the US. And that would be 1:29 p.m. on the West Coast of the US. Before all of that happens, Saturn turned direct. And she did that at, or she did that this morning at 5:09 a.m. Pacific time. So we are now sitting with a very slow moving, if not perceptibly moving at all, Saturn changing direction from retrograde into direct. So I thought the way for us to start the show this morning might be to talk about that, since that happened first in the time way of looking at things. Let's start with what happened first. And let's take a look at the general qualities of Saturn in retrograde, which he has been since I think it was May, and the Saturn direct, which will happen now, right? So when Saturn is in retrograde, it appears to move backwards through the sky. If you look at it on the zodiac wheel, you see it moving from, say, 17 degrees backwards to, say, 10 degrees. I'm making those numbers up. But it appears to do that. It isn't technically moving backwards in the sky. It's just a difference between the speed of the Earth around the sun and the speed of Saturn around the sun. Astrologically, a Saturn retrograde invites us into introspection, to reassessing our goals and our dreams, or our actions, our structures, our forms, and doing internal work related to Saturn's themes of responsibility, of boundaries, and discipline, and your long-term goals. So inward focused, right? So the key themes for us since May have really been about revisiting lessons. And, Saturn retrograde often brings up those past issues, the lessons that we haven't completely learned, perhaps, and particularly how the structures of our world, of our lives are playing out, our commitments and our personal discipline. And it encourages us to reflect on how we approach responsibility in our lives. Um, and how we sometimes are kind of projecting ourselves outward, or projecting responsibility outward onto others out there in the world. It is about breaking patterns. So it's a time when Saturn is retrograde to identify where you've been overly rigid, or where you have outdated patterns that no longer serve us in the main, or serve us in the small. It is about our inner authority, and the focus shifts inward, right inside of us. So asking us to reevaluate how we create boundaries for ourselves. How do we create structure for ourselves? What structures have we created that no longer are useful? Discipline, self-discipline. And rather than relying on external enforcement of that path that you are designed to take, bringing it into your personal responsibility, right? It's also slow progress when we're in retrograde. You just got to get used to that part, right? It's slow. It gives us time. The momentum is slowed down during a retrograde, because if you're going to do this kind of work, which I invite all of you to do in a retrograde of any planet, it takes time to integrate, to reintegrate, to imagine, to reimagine, to go through and evaluate where you've been. So it encourages us to pause and to reflect and to reassess your strategies, especially strategic thinking in Saturn, ensuring that they're aligned, our actions are aligned with our true goals, with the true you. Now, Saturn retrograde can feel heavy, and it can feel restrictive, like you're inside trying to break free or break out, especially if you are resisting the invitation from Saturn to do that inner work, right? And it's an opportunity for deep growth and for realignment. And that, again, is something that takes time, but can feel that we can feel the weight of that. So, challenges during a Saturn retrograde: we may face delays, setbacks, or we need to revisit plans, refine our plans. There may be unresolved issues around responsibility in your life, or your personal authority, or boundary issues that can surface and ask for your reassessment of how to handle those things. Now, let's take a look at that versus Saturn in direct motion. So today he's just, few hours away or few hours before this broadcast went into direct motion. And now we move from the internal work to external action. All right. So now we're allowed to apply the lessons that we've learned during the retrograde part of the cycle. So the key themes of Saturn in forward motion now are about moving forward, right? Saturn direct encourages us to take action on plans or goals or commitments with greater clarity than what we had earlier and with more purpose. So we're more purposeful in the application of our new strategies. And we're invited to build structures. And this is a time to reinforce the structures that you already have, kind of addressing the holes or the weak points, or to create new structures, right? Something new that is, generally speaking, a better picture of how structure can support you moving forward. It's a time for accountability. With Saturn moving forward, there's an emphasis on stepping into responsibility, and owning your role in shaping your future, right? I think I said that very plainly this morning at the beginning, right? I am reimagining the zodiac and opening it up so that the divine feminine has a greater role to play in the pantheon of what has been a very patriarchal system. And now following through, right? Following through with that commitment. And you'll see how that plays out. I'll see how that plays out over the course of the next 6 months. Manifesting results is also a part of Saturn moving forward. The reflective work that we have done during the retrograde now translates into sort of tangible progress where we really get to see the results of the work that we've been thinking about or entertaining within, because now we're pushing it outward and we're taking it a step at a time. And it also demands our patience and our perseverance. That's something that Saturn always demands, right? That idea of sustainability and commitment, and that things happen over the course of time. Now, Saturn direct often feels like the green light, right? Remember Tam and her little green light sign? After a period of delays or introspection, right? We're coming out of our cocoon, if you will, a bit. While the pace may still be a little slow because we're just beginning the direct motion, there's a sense of momentum and the ability to make steady progress. We're building again in the outer world, not just reassessing what's going on by the inner world. Now, there are some challenges, of course, with Saturn moving direct, and it requires us to act on what we learned, not just go back and do the same things over and over again, right? That's kind of this insanity, right? Expecting a new result, doing the same things over and over. So, if we haven't done the inner work during the retrograde, challenges may arise as we face the consequences of avoiding those lessons, right? And we certainly do not want to be caught there. So, in the greater world here, Saturn in retrograde is like the pause button, right? We've hit the pause button, offering time for us to reflect, to revise, and reassess. As of today, Saturn has hit the play button, and that allows us to move forward with greater clarity, with greater purpose, and we're armed with the insights that we gain during the retrograde phase. So, both phases are essential for growth and for evolution and for balance in our lives. And they work together to refine our understanding of discipline, of responsibility, of accountability, and what it means to have long term success. So, all of that is happening as of today. Now, I just want to take a minute here to say good morning to my followers out there, but also note if you're on YouTube at the moment, you're seeing a link. That is a link to next Thursday's webinar, The Reimagining Now of Ophiuchus. Actually, you know, it's the 13th sign webinar. And of course, I've already reimagined Ophiuchus in some ways. And yet I don't know that I can really bring out the reimagined Ophiuchus if we haven't even gotten the idea yet of what that would look like in our charts or in our lives. So join me. Click on that link, follow it. It's an $11 webinar. It is recorded if you cannot be there live, to find out what it would look like to enact that second thing that I want, which is to bring in that 13th sign. And how would that impact us? And if all goes well, we have a special guest that will join me during that webinar to talk about the number 13. All right, let's see who's out here this morning. Good morning to my husband, Terry, who was like the first one out there. And he says, "Good morning, my beautiful friends. Love you, Terry." And then Julie, I see you out there this morning. Happy Friday. And Diana S. Your last name just escaped me. Good morning. She says, "Lovely full moon energy in her ninth house of growth and expansion." Right? I've seen the bigger picture. And meditation all morning, writing this afternoon. Pam Z, we said happy birthday to you. Any extra insight on a full moon birthday, native balsamic moon? Certainly, if I get an opportunity to do that, I can do that for you. Tamara, good morning. And uh, treat yourself. Me too. Looking forward to the guidance. Oh, no, what does she say? Looking forward to the webinar. Yes, I saw that you are already registered. Teddy Hickox, good morning to you. And Tina Wildenauer, good morning. And Mary Ann, good morning. Tom, good morning. Finally, YouTube missing with me, Mercury retrograde pre-shadow. Indeed. So a big hello. He says, "We've missed you the last couple of broadcasts, I think, Tom." Christine Buckingham, good morning. JLo, good morning. Joan Durchie, good morning. Happy full moon to you as well. And it's in her native sign. She is a Taurus, now named Taurana. And I'm not sure I'm clear with that name yet, but she is reimagined. And we're going to talk about that this morning, Joan. And that is it that I see out there. If you're joining me later and you are not understanding all the things that we're talking about, please hit me up. Let me know that you have questions. And of course, if you're here live and you have questions, please post them in the comments. So now I'm going to ask the question, what if we reimagined Saturn? Right? I briefly spoke about that on Friday. Last week, Monday, maybe it was Monday. No, last Friday was my breakdown. So Monday, Monday, we reimagined a lot of different things. And I might have mentioned that we needed a reimagined Saturn as ruler of the sign of Capricorn, right? Because you can't have this very masculine, patriarchal, rigid figure be the ruler of a newly imagined feminine sign of Capricorn. So I looked at what other rulers could there be of the sign Capricornia? What other bodies would more clearly fit that role? And then I asked the question, well, what if we reimagine Saturn in this role? So that's what we're going to talk about now, because I think there are some interesting possibilities here. Right? In the myths, Saturn is all about the masculine, right? He's this patriarchal figure. He's very rigid. He's all about structure and form and discipline, accountability, responsibility. And I don't want to take basic things like that away. But what if we reimagine them in a more feminine way? So if Saturn were reimagined as a feminine archetype, it would bring a profound shift, wouldn't it, to its traditional symbolism. And we would embrace this idea of natural cycles. Maybe wisdom would be looked at differently, maybe through a sense of nurturing, and yet a powerful hand of time, right? Making it sustainable and something to be revealed over time. And let's look at how we could do this. First of all, let's look at Saturn as the keeper of life's rhythms, right? The boundaries of life, right? We have them. In the earliest days of astrology, Saturn was the furthest planet out that we could see, right? It still is, right? We can't see Uranus except with telescopes, right? But so Saturn became known as the outer limits, the outer boundary of the known world or of the known universe. Well, now we know so much more about the universe that we live in. So it's maybe no longer as appropriate to hold Saturn as the final dispositor of boundaries or of responsibility or of accountability. So rather than the rigid patriarchal enforcer of limitations, Saturn becomes the wise mother of time, guiding the natural ebb and flow of life, right, with a deep respect for cycles and for seasons. And she would embody the acceptance of growth and decay and renewal, teaching that all stages of life hold importance, hold value. Her role as a Capricornia's ruler then would be to help us honor time as a creative force in the universe, a creative force that nurtures, that is, sort of rather than the strict boundary holder that confines us, would allow us to be nurtured in whatever cycle of time we found ourselves in. And what if the reimagined Saturn became the guardian of legacy and tradition? In her feminine form, Saturn would emerge totally different. She would encourage nurturing, a nurturing approach, perhaps even to legacy building. And what would that look like? One that fosters sustainable growth and passes wisdom on down to the progeny, right down to the different ages, the different generations. She would help us see that true legacy comes not from control, but from carefully tending to what endures. Try that one on for size. What endures? What's enduring, right? What is most important based on values? She values traditions that serve a purpose and willingly lets go of those things that no longer serve or support growth. She will embody a matriarchal wisdom that treasures both heritage and adaptability, being able to move through those cycles. Nurturing structure and endurance would become another hallmark of a more feminine Saturn. The feminine Saturn guide who patiently tends to growth, right, with enduring dedication and fosters resilience through self care, through patience and inner stability. Instead of imposing discipline for the sake of control, right? That's the key. She fosters inner structures, helping us to understand our own boundaries and understanding boundaries as protective, as nurturing forces rather than limiting ones. She teaches that most of the enduring growth happens slowly, right? And with care. And much like a tree rooted deeply in the earth, it takes time. Hmm. What if we reimagine Saturn as the womb of potential and renewal, right? As a divine feminine figure, Saturn becomes the archetype of the cosmic crone, the wise elder who understands the mysteries of life and death and creation and destruction. Her scythe becomes the symbol not just of endings, but of clearing space for renewal and mirroring the sort of Capricorn journey, Capricornia's journey of acceptance of cycles of natural transformation, right? In this form, Saturn encourages us to find the power in letting go and trusting that every ending leads to a new beginning or holds the seed for that new growth. What if Saturn became more motherly, a mother of inner authority, perhaps? Rather than reinforcing external rules, the feminine Saturn teaches us to cultivate inner authority and self respect. She encourages us to embody our power from within, not out looking for it outside of us, but empowering it from within us, honoring our own wisdom and guiding others to do the same for themselves, to find their inner wisdom. So, in this role, she's a guide to self mastery and not through force, but through self trust, through resilience, and authentic purpose, right? There's always that authenticity that Saturn drives us toward. So in this feminine form, Saturn could be depicted as a cloaked woman. You saw the picture, I think I shared, of Capricornia and the figure, the woman that's both holding the vessel that light is emitted from, as well as the scythe that tells us all about this idea of needing renewal and how that endings are just the seed of growth for the new beginning. They're both, right? Rather than the Saturn that we see depicted as the Grim Reaper, right? All right. Now, we haven't yet talked about a reimagined Pisces. And, this is going to take me time to roll out, guys, because I haven't even yet written all that I need to write about these things, right? So I have I have reimagined a new Pisces, calling her Piscesia or Piscea, and Saturn direct is happening in Pisces. So we have to jump a little bit ahead here and let me give you some ideas about maybe a reimagined Pisces so that we can carry on with our conversation about Saturn here. So, Saturn direct in Piscesia or Piscea is a divine dance of structure and fluidity. Pisces, water, right? So here we're merging structure with spirituality. And in Piscea, Saturn's energy becomes more soft, more intuitive, and spiritually attuned. While traditionally associated with boundaries and discipline, Saturn in Pisces teaches us that we need structure in order to support the flow, right? But we need flow within the structure. So we're integrating emotional and spiritual needs with a practical life. Saturn still holds that sort of practical, grounded information for us. Saturn's lessons now emphasize spiritual responsibility, right? Taking ownership of how we align our actions with our higher purpose, right? And I'm speaking about this because Saturn turned direct in Pisces, right? Renamed Piscea. How about this? Compassionate accountability. Saturn in the newly reimagined Pisces would infuse the concept of discipline with compassion. Like, this is a time to set boundaries that protect your emotional and energetic well-being, not out of fear or control, but from a place of self-respect and care, self-care. Saturn's nurturing hand in Piscea reminds us that accountability doesn't have to be harsh. There's no need for the whip, right? It can be empathetic and it can be supportive. Let's go on to see about healing through cycles of renewal, right? Pisces is the two fish, right? Image emit in the patriarchal way of looking at Pisces, he's ruled by Neptune or Poseidon, the god of the oceans, right? Very powerful with his trident that can create earthquakes, floods, tidal waves, right? He's a very masculine character, but Pisces, a very feminine sign. So we reimagine her as a mermaid with vast power, right? Vast power. And her connection to the vast ocean of consciousness brings healing energy, a healing dimension to Saturn's influence here. And as Saturn turns direct in Piscea, there's a call to embrace forgiveness, both for yourself and for others, while releasing the outdated emotional patterns that we've been holding on to. So, this is a time to clear the slate for new growth, trusting that life cycles will guide you in the right direction, the right boundaries, the right discipline, the need for, a new um, structure in your own life. And we're bridging the dream world with reality, right? That's another key theme of Pisces energy anyway. So we have Saturn's grounded energy in Piscea helping us to bring dreams into reality. And this alignment is perfect for manifesting creatively and for being spiritual and for intuitive visions in very tangible ways, right? What good is a dream if you can't bring it into reality? Now, some dreams aren't meant to be brought into reality, they just remain in the dream realm. But for most of us, Well, for all of us, anything that we wish to create begins in the dream, begins in the vision, the ability for us to envision, right? And then to bring that vision to life, we have to do things. This is where the Saturn's groundedness comes into play. The direct motion now of Saturn encourages us to take practical steps toward realizing the ideals that Pisces has inspired us to, and blending imagination with determination, with practical action, with the doing, right? All right, how about responsibility for collective healing? Big theme, right? A big theme. In Pisces, Saturn's scope expands beyond personal growth to include collective growth or collective emotional growth and healing. So, this is a time to take responsibility for your own emotional well being, definitely, for how your actions impact others, for how your words impact others, but it also helps us foster connection that can heal and uplift not only ourselves, but our families, our communities, our friends, the world at large. So, Saturn encourages us to think about our individual legacies as well as the spiritual and emotional legacy that we leave behind for the world, right? For all the people. So, practical applications for this energy become things like setting boundaries with love. Don't forget the love quotient here. Redefine your boundaries to protect your energy while still allowing the emotional flow and connection between you and others. Practice saying no to things that drain you so that you can say yes to what nourishes you, what empowers you, what excites you, right? What helps you see growth. Ground your spiritual practices. Use Saturn's grounding energy to establish routines that are very healthy for you as far as spiritual and creative growth. That might include journaling and meditation, or just dedicating time to an artistic project, or dedicating time to be out in nature where you can feel the full effects of life in her natural dimension. Manifest creative dreams. So with Saturn direct, take those tangible steps toward your vision and tune into the spiritual dimension as well as the practical earthly things, the 3D reality things. Maybe break those dreams down into smaller, achievable goals, right? You have some time. You don't have to have everything done tomorrow. Um, Engage in emotional clearing. Reflect on the emotional baggage that you're carrying around and that has surfaced during these last few months of Saturn's retrograde period. Practice forgiveness. It's a big deal right now. And letting go of what no longer serves you is a part of this whole process, allowing space for renewal. If you don't have space for renewal, how can it happen? Right? Foster collective responsibility. Consider how you can contribute to your community, to your family, and how you can contribute to their emotional well-being, their spiritual well-being. Acts of kindness, support, or simply showing up for others and aligning with Piscea, and her compassionate energy. All right. Questions. How's everybody doing out there with all of this? Let's see. Christine says, "Happy birthday to you, Pam." And Eli, reimagined. What's that mean? It means that we take a new view of an old paradigm, right? We look at the paradigm and we think about, how would this be improved? How could this be better? If we reimagine the zodiac to include the divine feminine, which is sorely missing in most of the signs, right? A full 6 of the zodiac signs are divine feminine, and 2 of those 6 are ruled by feminine planets. Why? Because all the other planets have been granted masculine qualities, patriarchal qualities. Is it any wonder the divine feminine is struggling for expression on this planet right now? I mean, this is just one way in which this has happened. So we're reimagining what the design would look like. What would the grand zodiac look like if everybody was given their rightful place, including the divine masculine, right? I'm not saying let's just rewrite everything to be feminine, but let's at least bring the feminine in and give her her rightful place and reimagine some of the pieces that might be actually more feminine than masculine, right? So I hope that helps, Eli. Amy D, good morning to you. Leilani, good morning to you. Tina, how long does Saturn stay in Pisces until? So as we move into 2025, Pisces, Saturn will move into Aries. And then he will, I think this is at the end of March. So at the beginning of the astrological year. And then in June, I believe it is, he'll have been in retrograde and moved back to Pisces to finish that. And I think by next September, he's back in Aries again, where eventually he will conjunct mighty Neptune that will also be reimagined as they move together to 0 degrees of Aries. So 25 and 26 are big years for big changes going on in the outer dimensions. Uranus also changes signs next year. Pluto's changing signs just next week for what will be the foreseeable 20 years or so into the future. So good question there, Tina. And Saturn stays in a sign for about 2.5 years, 2.5 to 3 years, something like that. Narges, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for your questions. Continue to ask those questions there. I just realized, it's already halfway through my broadcast. So let's take a look now at the full moon, right? That is happening as well today. I think there's more that we can talk about embracing Saturn's direct motion in the feminine archetype. And perhaps we could talk about that on another day. So the full moon, hold on, I must get my chart because I got to see it. There we go. So the full moon is occurring at 24 degrees 01 minutes of the sign of Taurus. And that means the sun is over there at 24:01 of the sign of Scorpio, newly Scorpia. And that sun is in opposition as a full moon. There's the opposition to a newly reimagined Tirana, which we have not yet talked about. And that moon is conjunct Uranus. So we have surprises, we have some shocks, perhaps. We have the unexpected occurring within this full moon. And that full moon is interestingly placed, so is the sun actually, to the goddess Eris, who's also at 24 degrees 40 minutes, right? She's like bullet burn close to a semi sextile to the moon because she's in Aries, right? Eris is in Aries and an inconjunct to the sun. So she's already the goddess of discord, and she's placed herself, or she is placed, in a relationship to both of the lumen, light bodies here, the sun and the moon, in discordant ways. So that's going to also impact the way that we look at this full moon. So let's first look at the myth as I've defined her in the sign of Taurus. I am now calling her Torana. I'm not sure if that will stick, right? Again, the reimagining is a work in process and progress. And we are looking at her now as the Earth Mother and guardian of abundance, or at least that's how I'm imagining her now. In the reimagined myth, she's known as the Earth Mother and keeper of sacred abundance. And she's a goddess who embodies the whole nurturing, fertile energy of the land and rooted deeply in the earth, right? She's grounded in the earth energy. She's a figure of strength. She's a figure of wisdom and resilience. She is the protector of all that grows. And she's a guardian of the natural cycles of time and a force of creation. And she's known for her patience and enduring presence. Now, I got to give you a quick word here. So far, I have imagined everything and brought to you everything that's in the high positive, right? So if we were talking about gene keys, for example, this would be the Siddhi version, right? Or even the gift version of these energies. I have reimagined the shadows as well, but I haven't brought that to you yet, right? This is only 2 days old in terms of me broadcasting this to you. But know that I'm not just looking at reimagining the highest and best of the sign. I've also reimagined some of the challenges and the shadows of these signs. I'm just not bringing that to you yet. Okay. So I just wanted to make that clear. This is not just some, oh, yeah, everything's all roses, because it's not always going to be that way, right? We have the full spectrum of frequency in those energies. So Taurus's new version or journey, excuse me, embracing her connection to the earth. So we now have a moon whom I renamed Luna. So we now have Luna in Taurana in a newly reimagined sign that is all about the connection to earth. And Taurana was born from the earth, right? From the heart of the earth. She rises with the spring flowers, and she has rulership over the verdant green beauty of fields and the rich soil that supports life. And from a young age, she felt a profound connection to nature's rhythms, sensing the cycles and how they moved through seasonally. And she also found that there was resilience in those cycles. Within every seed, within every root, and within every bloom, there was this resilient energy. She found power not in the quick triumphs, but in the quiet, steady growth of the land itself, learning that true strength really lies in patience and rootedness, right? So, unlike deities who chase glory or fleeting accomplishments, she found her power through nurturing the long haul, right? She is a fixed sign. She's fixed, right? She understands that abundance doesn't come from force, but is coming from cultivating a balance and a respect and care, right? She's known to walk the fields, blessing the plants, the animals, the creatures that thrive under her protection. And each one is a symbol of her strength and her compassion. So, what are her achievements? What can we see as an achievement with a feminine Taurus, which Taurus is already feminine, right? So I'm not saying that Taurus wasn't already feminine. I'm just saying, okay, let's imagine this full moon in Taurus. The achievements here are about creation and preservation. So her achievements are woven into the fabric of earth here. And she's the guardian of crops, the bringer of harvests, and the preserver of seeds for future growth. She's not just, growing for the season, she's growing for the future seasons as well. Her influence reaches beyond the material realm, though. She represents the nurturing forces of the universe and those forces that are within each one of us that fuel growth and creativity and a deep appreciation of life's beauty. And as a feminine archetype, she embodies not just creation, but the wisdom to sustain and protect what she creates, right? We have to have both, right? Otherwise, we can't go on. So, um, under a feminine or a reimagined Taurus, societies flourish with bountiful harvests, with vibrant cultures. She teaches people to work with the land, honoring its cycles, and cultivating a relationship of respect and mutual care as um, stewards of the land. Her gifts are not merely physical abundance, but the energies of joy and gratitude and connection to the earth that come with living in harmony with nature. Hmm. So, how does she gain her power? She gains power by having steadfastness, steadfast patience is maybe how we can look at that. Her power comes from her dedication to the land and to abundance and to elevating the natural rhythms and cycles of the land. True growth requires time. So she's got a connection here a little bit with time. And she embodies the grace that comes from allowing natural processes to unfold rather than forcing or pushing. She allows things to unfold, and she nurtures through grounded wisdom. She creates with love and gratitude, and she honors the sacred connection to the body and to senses, right? The very sensual nature of the land, of us as physical beings, of the physical nature of the universe. So, what would the legacy look like of a reimagined Taurus energy? It would be a new vision of abundance and strength, wouldn't it? Right? Her story teaches us that true power is rooted in resilience and in connection and in love. She is the guardian of both nature and the inner strength that comes from living authentically with respect for oneself and the world. And her myth reminds us that abundance is not just material wealth, but the richness of connection and the richness of growth and the tapestry of life when it's woven together with gratitude. And as a powerful feminine archetype, a newly imagined Taurus energy involves us all recognizing the gratitude and respect for one another. And she inspires us to seek strength in harmony rather than in dominance, showing us there's this immense power in patience and in care and in grounded wisdom. She is the enduring, she is the unyielding force of life's cycles, encouraging us and all who follow her path to nurture their lives with purpose, with intention, and reverence for the earth, right? The reimagined myth brings a strong and nurturing quality to the divine feminine, making her a wise archetype, honoring her as a powerful earth mother and creator. So now we have this full moon in this sign, shining this very, you know, wonderfully feminine light on all of these qualities. Now, at some point, we also have to have a conversation about the ruler of Taurus, who is at this point Venus. And I don't know that we need to change Venus as the ruler here, but maybe we need to reimagine Venus somewhat because she's had the role basically of beauty and a sort of a different role as maybe an empowered creatrix, um, source of inner abundance would be better put for Venus than what we have looked at so far, right? So I'm really thinking there's some work we can do there. Um, but again, I only have 15 minutes here. So um, maybe we want to look at the possibility that Ceres, the goddess, the earth goddess herself, the mother goddess, would be the better ruler for Taurus energy. You know, the essence of Ceres is a Roman goddess of agriculture and harvest. She's a natural fit as the protector of the land, of Earth's abundance, and the natural cycles of life. And her whole mythology involves nurturing growth and the balance between life and death. So it fits, right? It fits our Venus. What about Vesta? She's keeper of the hearth, right? Of the sacred fire. Maybe Gaia, who's not typically a body. I'm sure there must be an asteroid Gaia. I would have to look that one up. She's not a traditional celestial body, let's say. She's kind of the primordial earth goddess. Um, in mythology, in Greek mythology, she represents the source of all life and the earth's foundation and sustaining force. So maybe Gaia is a better ruler. So a conversation that we might have on later days. So if we look at this particular full moon then, and we have this legacy of the more masculine qualities that we've adopted for the zodiac. When we look at something like a full moon, then what we can see is this elevation of a new mythology, right? If we brought this out in a new way, what would this full moon look like? We have the very masculine sun moving through Scorpio, and Scorpia, as we reimagined her as, you know, some a force that is about transformation. She is a force that is unleashing or leashing the scorpion, right? The lower baser qualities of Scorpio. She's leashing them and making them serve her, as self-mastery is what's involved there. And she's elevating that to become the eagle and ultimately the transformational energy of fire in the phoenix. So we have the sun really highlighting that for us at this moment in the sign of Scorpio, bringing the masculine qualities maybe into a balance with this newly imagined energy of Scorpio. And then those are opposing the moon and Uranus, right? The moon and Uranus also, right now, as he stands, a very masculine character. I don't know that he gets reimagined yet as a feminine character. I almost think of him as androgynous, maybe a masculine feminine, a feminine masculine character. I'm not sure yet. I haven't gotten that far to him, but we will get there. In the meantime, this full moon really invites us to take a look at the divine feminine archetype and where are we embodying it or not in our own lives, but also how can we, by embodying it ourselves in a more profound way, bring that to the collective, right? So that's the invitation. Now, we can also, as I've been thinking about this, I started thinking about the possibility of the impact of a reimagined zodiac on human design. And I haven't completely gone there yet, right? Again, it's still fairly new. But if we looked at where Luna is sitting for this particular moon in human design, she's sitting at the gate 23, which is the gate on the throat center that is called the gate of assimilation, or in quantum human design, called the gate of transmission. And reimagining Luna here, or the moon in this particular gate, provides maybe a fresh transformational lens to explore the energy of the gate 23. And the gate 23 is carrying the theme of transforming complexity into simplicity, right? It's a gate that breaks down the complex into the simple, and often through articulation. We're speaking it, and the power of communication, the power of words, right? The power of words. And how might a reimagined moon slash Luna express her energy in the gate 23? Let's see. And again, this is just off the top of my head, so don't, quote me on this as forever being this new archetype, but she would certainly have a softer, more intuitive voice at gate 23. And she would still have analytical and communication ability, so we're not taking that away. But in this role, she would transform the words into more empowered words, and from merely articulating ideas into the process of bringing an emotional resonance and integration right to those words that would help others to understand and feel the truth of what is being shared. Right? Big job for her here. So she would, maybe clarify emotional complexity and become the guide for transforming the emotional subconscious complexity of emotions, of feelings, of experiences, of self sabotage, kind of 12th house kinds of things, and bring it into clarity. And she helps us maybe articulate not just what we think, but what we deeply feel, and that creates pathways for others to resonate with and integrate those truths, the higher truths. Maybe there's a gentle simplification here. And instead of imposing mental clarity with sharpness, Luna would soften the energy of the 23. She offers maybe more compassionate articulation of ideas, blunting those edges, rounding those sharp edges, helping others find simplicity but without losing depth. This energy would teach us maybe to take what feels overwhelming or chaotic and break it down into manageable and relatable parts. The simplification process doesn't have to be massive. It could be bit by bit, right? And then Luna's natural connection to cycles really aligns beautifully in this gate 23 with the theme of breaking down and building up. Right? She reminds us that assimilation isn't instantaneous. It doesn't happen with the snap of a finger. It happens in phases, like the phases of the moon. Right now, the phase of the moon is in fullness. So we have fullness in simplifying, in bringing things into a more simplified voice, perhaps. Luna teaches patience with the process of this. Integrating new ideas takes time, right? I've noticed this morning I was up high with listeners and now they're down. And I'm wondering, people are having trouble with this integration. And that's the typical thing when we start to reveal something new. when we start to change a paradigm, we lose people, right? We lose them along the way. So we have to be a consistent voice, a consistent voice of nurturing this new mythology, right? A time that takes time, right? A reimagination that takes time, right? And having patience with the process of integrating new ideas, new knowledge, new emotions, honoring the time it takes as long as it takes, right? For something new to come into full understanding. And we could do that bit by bit, right? Um, because she sits on the center, the voice box, right? The throat center, the center for creativity, but also the voice, right? The voice bringing words, the mental energy that it takes, right? From the sun has been at the gate 43, is at the gate 43, which is on the ajna. So very mental energy, the mental energy of ideas down into assimilating at the throat center where gate 23 is. So it's one of the few times in human design where we have the sun and earth, and in this case also the moon, creating this energy that is a full channel in your human design. So we have this, this idea of messages coming in, ideas coming in that are needing to be unpacked somewhat and are needing to be shared with the right people in the right time, right? And in the right way. And people needing to be ready to hear the new messages, right? Some people aren't going to be ready to listen to the new messages. So another role that the Luna might be playing in the sign of Taurus here is about, or at the gate 23, even gate 23 being in Taurus, would emphasize intuitive communication, speaking from the knowledge beyond, right? Higher knowledge, articulating truths that are not only logical, but are also deeply felt. The reimagined energy encourages us to do this, to use the words to heal, to inspire, and to connect, bridging intellectual ideas, the mind, with emotional understanding, the heart. And what we can do at this point then is to help ourselves by articulating feelings, putting our feelings into words and conversations that can become healing places, healing spaces where complex or challenging truths are made digestible, broken down and empowering. And we have to be able to create safe spaces to do this, right? Luna brings a nurturing quality to this gate rather than masculine. And it's ensuring that our communication would foster understanding and inclusion rather than division, right? I was chatting with a friend the other day who was voting Republican, let's say, in the election, and her daughter went the other direction. She went Democrat. And that has created a huge rift in her relationship with her daughter, which so sucks, right? So part of that is because we've had this very masculine view of some of these energies. But what if we, brought a balance to these energies and we could understand and include rather than divide and separate? It could change the world. Right. So, in her reimagined role in the Gate 23, Luna reminds us that true simplicity comes from compassionately integrating complexity and then breaking it down into smaller pieces and parts. And she invites us to create a space for understanding and connection and healing. By aligning with Luna at this gate, we can turn our insight. And remember, she's at this gate for the full moon, right? So it's not just for today, even though physically she's at this gate today. Tomorrow she changes gates. Later today she'll change gates. But it's an open invitation for us to align it with a higher power, to kind of align and turn our insights into gifts that we share both with ourselves and with others. And it bridges the head and the heart, right? That's where the throat sits. The throat sits between the head and the heart, right? So it's the words, it's the thoughts that turn into words, it's the knowledge that comes out of the throat that bridges the head and the heart. Very cool, right? All right. So I know that was a completely different show. Um, And it's just going to be the way it is for a while because I'm so excited about this. And, I'm sorry if I lose listeners over it and maybe you don't get it yet. And that's okay because those of you that stay, those of you that resonate have been reaching out and telling me this, right? You've been reaching out and telling me. So I'm really, excited to share this information with you. But I also, like I said earlier in the broadcast, love feedback, right? What are your thoughts on integrating these things, especially when it gets trickier as to, I haven't yet reimagined those masculine signs. And do they need to be reimagined? I think perhaps, I'm going a little far right now with the reimagination of the feminine energies, and maybe those will need to be buffered somewhat over time. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But then the same thing with the masculine energies. I don't want to take away the masculine. We need the masculine, but it needs to also be empowered to be in his right place, his role, as opposed to trying to bridge both and be all in his energy. All right, let's pull a card. I'm going to pull a goddess card because I feel called for the goddesses today. And this is the deck by Colette Baron Reed called the Goddess Oracle or the Goddess Power Oracle. So let's pull a card from this deck for this full moon in a very feminine sign. And I can't wait till next month when the full moon is in a masculine sign, right? It'll be in Sagittarius, or the moon itself won't be in Sagittarius. It'll be in Gemini. And yeah, I can't wait to have to deal with that. So we get Bronwyn. How perfect is this? Feminine Bronwyn. And she is the goddess, in this case, representing forgiveness. Forgiveness. Let's see what that says. And all right. And she came out upright. So we have an empowerment message. And I'm going to read both empowerment and alignment because just to be holistic here. So, Bronwyn, sometimes life invites us into conditions that challenge us to the core. As the Celtic goddess Bronwyn forgave those who caused her own death by a broken heart, she asks you to set yourself free from the seeds of resentment that will surely choke the life out of your dreams. We are wounded by others and weave stories around our hurts and losses that live on in our hearts and minds. We come to distrust the potential of love and connection. No matter what your story or when it began, forgiveness is the key to freedom here. Forgiveness allows for mending and repair, opening the heart to give and receive. If you need to forgive yourself or others, now is the time to do it. Keep your heart open and you can begin again. Only beauty, freedom, and treasures are found in the spirit of forgiveness. The goddess Bronwyn is here to support you. How fantastic is that, as we talked about in the very beginning of the reimagination of Taurus, that there would be forgiveness with the moon, full moon there, right? Forgiveness. Sometimes, in the alignment message now, sometimes we unintentionally cause hurt or pain to others. Sometimes our motive really is to hurt. Now is the time for self inventory and making amends. Your alignment task is to be 100% accountable for your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, motives, and actions. You are not doing this, however, to experience forgiveness from someone else or even from yourself. It's to have the strength and fortitude to be accountable and take responsibility for your actions. I can't even make this up, right? This is Saturn direct. In this way, neither guilt nor shame can take root in your heart. You stand empowered and humble with your head held high, no matter what the consequences. You will always be the beneficiary of such an act. The goddess Bronwyn says deep healing comes from this kind of courage and respect. So that's our moon goddess, Bronwyn, forgiveness. All right, guys. I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you on Monday when we'll take a look at what's coming up for the week and how we might be able to reimagine some of those energies. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.